Okay, so this lesson is kind of um, um, the lesson on a data type in Python. We call it a collection. So this is gonna be the first collection that we're gonna learn. Okay, so imagine that if we go to the restaurant and then we want to order these menus or these dishes, when we write in the Python programming um, code, like you need to, if you want to store these strings, you need to create four variables like this, right? But in Python, it is very convenient that they have like a collection variable called list, and then you can just name it just once, not just once. I mean just one single name, and then you can collect all the values like a list. It is like a list in English language. Okay, but to define it, you need to have a bracket like this, and then for each value here, because there are multiple values, they need to be separated by comma. And then we can see that all the dishes are stored in a single list variable menu here. Okay, so it is very convenient if you have like many values to store. Okay, so what is list actually? List is an object that can store a sequence of items. When I refer to a sequence, it means that order is important. So order, it should be chicken with basils comes before fried fish, and fried fish comes before tofu and minced pork soup, for example. Okay. And I say items, which means each values here is called item, or sometimes I call it element. We can call it interchangeably. And when we want to divide a list, we need to use a pair of brackets, like the square bracket, like this. Okay, and then this is, I talked before that each element, if you have multiple elements, they need to be separated by commas. And a list can hold different types of items. How many types of item or value that we know? So far we know what data types that we know. So we know string, right? We know integer. We know what? Float, yes. We know what else? Boolean, right? Is that all? Is that all? Nah, yeah, none. This is another type, like this is the emptiness, right? Emptiness symbol. It's an object. Okay, let's say object. What else? What else? Okay. The last thing that we know so far is list itself, right? List is this is all what we call data types in Python. This is the basic data types, I can say. And this is an advanced one, which is like object. We not gonna cover in this class. And then this one, we're gonna cover it today, which is a collection. So actually, there are many types of collections. The first one is list. Actually, another one called we have set, we have tuples, we have dictionary. We're gonna learn these other three collections later on. Okay, but it says that a list can hold different types of items. So it means it can like hold string, integer, float, boolean, and a list itself. Okay, or it can be like containing like nothing. which is what we call is an empty list, represented by just a pair of bracket and there's nothing inside, nothing, even none inside. Okay. And lists are mutable, which means that the items in the list can be changed. It means that list can be expanded and list can be shrinked. If you look at the data types on the right hand side here, we can say that knowing if it is mutable or immutable is very important to understand Python better. So we can see that for this one, we don't talk about the object, okay, because it is an advanced data type that we not gonna cover in this class. So for the basic one, this one is immutable. It means that we cannot modify it. If we want to change the value of that variable, we need to reassign it. For example, okay, so if we have x equal to 2, 5, 6, if you want us to change 2, 5, 6 into like change 5 in the middle to 7, we cannot do like just change just one position in the integer number here. We need to reassign it like this, right? We need to reassign it. That's why we call that these data type, all the variables that have these data types are immutable, but list is mutable. So it means that it can be changed, it can be expanded or shrinked later on after it is defined at the beginning. And we will see later on how. Okay, set is mutable, dictionary is mutable, and of course the reason that I skip tuples because tuples are not mutable, which means they are immutable. When we will see later on, okay. But for the collections, I think these three are mutable. Okay. Okay, so list size. Actually, the size of a list is just the number of items in the list. We can use length, like this is a function, a built-in function, right, that returns the number of something. So if inside is a list, so we can just revise what we have known so far about length function. So if we pass a string like Python, so length gonna return what? 4, oh no, 6, right? Because it's gonna return the number of characters in the strings, and we gonna understand later on why is that. But we know this because we just remember it, right? That this function returns the number of characters. But also we can use this function for a list variable as well. So I haven't created the menu here. Let me copy this. Okay, we can see that this is in the text style. So we cannot run this. I need to copy it first and then put it in the code block, and then so that I can run it. Okay, so we have a menu variable here already, and menu is a list. If we run this, we're gonna know the number of items. Shall we count it manually first? Okay, have a look in this one. How many items in this? You can type it in the chat. Yeah, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What about this? How many items in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm not really sure. Okay, we'll see. So for the first one is an easy case, right? That we can write it. We know it easily by counting it. This is just simply count. So it's 4, correct? Okay. So when I change to this example, with the same example that I shown in the text box before, how many items? So it is 5 because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last item is a list, and we just like count it all into 1 because it is a list. Okay, so it is 5. Yes, it is 5. Okay, what about this? An empty list. What is the length of an empty list, or what is the size of an empty list? Anyone? Empty. Yes, it is 0 because it is empty, so it means no items in it. Okay, now you understand it, right? So maybe one more. Okay, what is the size of this list? Actually, this gonna be error because this is not a list, right? It's gonna be error because length function needs only 1 argument, but I gave it 4 arguments or 4 parameters, so it the errors happen. The errors occurs. So let me write this. Okay, if I want to make it as a list, I select this, and then I need to add a pair of bracket to wrap it up into a list. Okay, so for this one, what do you think the size of the list is? Error. Is that error? No, it's not error anymore because this is you can see if let me see if, okay, so in Colab you can see the highlight. They're gonna help you highlight which bracket is paired of which bracket. So for this one, it is like this one is pair, right? And then when I move the cursor here, you can see the green that is highlighted these 2 brackets. Okay, so this is pair, this pairs already. And then here, you can see that this bracket is paired with this one. Okay, and then you can see the last one, the outermost bracket here is paired with the leftmost bracket here. So it means that once that for the outer bracket, if I just like remove the inside, if I remove the thing inside, we can see that this is a list, right? And then when I put anything inside, it is still a list. So it means that it is just 1 variable or 1 parameter that we pass to this function. So then it's no error because this function accepts 1 parameter and we did it correctly. Okay, so the answer is 4 because it contains 1 empty list and actually 3 empty lists and another 1 list of 0. Okay, you're not confused, right? Okay, it's not confusing. Okay, let's move on how the data store in a list. So I change to how the items store in the list. Okay, so if we create a data, like a variable name data with this list, right? It contains string, integer, float, boolean, and unless. So what is it? How these items are stored. So firstly, in Python, when like so I will give you a simplest case first. So maybe when we use like when we assign a variable with a value like maybe x, maybe like 4 here. Okay, so what happened in the memory is that in the logical memory is that Python gonna reserve an address in the memory to keep that to keep the name of the variable, which is x here, and then this is 4, which is another address in the memory that keeping the value of 4. And then when we do this in the program, what happened is that in the memory kind of is going to create a pointer from x to 4. So when we refer to x later on, like print x, okay, the Python program gonna like find where is x, also x is here, and then we see that in the x box here is pointing to the value of 4, so it print 4 for us. Okay, so for list it's the same. When we like this one is a kind of we define a variable, right, name data. So in the memory in Python program, so it reserve an address, and then it name like it reserve an address to store the name of the variable, which is data. Okay, and then when we assign, we use the equal symbols to assign the value to the data. It means that they create a pointer to point to the value, right? But this time the value is a list, so it means it's a collection. So in this is just maybe the representation when we write a list, just to convey that it is a collection. So we write it, we use a box, a big box here, where inside there are multiple boxes here. Imagine that each box is referring to like each variable, right? But it keep it in a collection style. Okay, so each box needs to have a pointer, right? Because it's kind of a variable. So they need to have a pointer to the value. And the first value is a string. So in the memory, there is an address storing chicken with basil string here. And then it assigned to the first, this is the first position of the list. So we're gonna have a pointer to point chicken with basils here. And the second position gonna point to 2, which is the integer here. And this is like a value. So in the memory, there is this value floating in the memory to associate this variable to this value. They need to create a pointer from the third position, because this is in the third position, to point this value. Okay, and then the same with the fourth position, and then the last position is gonna actually I write it wrong here. I'm gonna change it later on and then update the collab. Actually, it's gonna point to a list, which is a collection, right? But it needs to be just this list contains multiple entries, which is like multiple variables inside, and then for each one it needs to have a pointer to the real value, which is like empty string, and this is like sweet potato here. And this is another box 3 here. Okay, any questions? This picture is important when we later on, I mean, when we learn how to modify a list, and then we're gonna understand better why the result is this, why not like something else. We're gonna do more. Okay. Okay, there's no question, right? Okay, so remember that when we use the assignment, when we define a variable, there are two things happen. Like they create a value in the memory, they create an address to store a name, and then when we want to associate these two values together, it means when we assign a value to a variable, they create a pointer to it. Okay. Clear? Okay, so what about this one? So when we like, okay, when the program read this line, the first line, it like it's gonna create drink here, right? And then pimps here. Anyone knows pimps? Anyone have tried pimps before? Pimps is a summer drink, like popular summer drink in UK. It's kind of an alcohol drink one, where passion fruits. You can add any passion fruits or any fruits that you like. Okay, it's very delicious. I recommend you to try. Okay, let's come back. Drink and pimps here, and then when we use an assign, it means that pimps gonna be assigned to drink, right? It means we have a pointer from drinks to pimps. Okay, when the program run this line, it means that, so this one is wrong. They're gonna create a desert, like they're gonna reserve an address in the memory to store the name, which is desserts, and this is a list. So this is the list here, right? In the memory, they're gonna create a list, which is just an address, right, to store something, the value, and the value is panna cotta here and 2 here. Okay, and then because it is a list means that a collection of variables, so they create a pointer here. This is a list. And then when we need to assign this list to the variable named dessert, so it means that in the memory it creates a pointer from dessert to point this list. Okay, and then for the last line, we need to create an order address. I mean, to reserve an address to store order, the name order, right? And then this is a list again, so it means like this. But instead that they're gonna store the value inside, because it is not the value itself. Actually, a list is a collection of variables, or a collection of storage boxes, thing like that. So there are many boxes inside. The number of boxes is equal to the number of values at that time that they are storing. And then this is the real value, right? Salad, and then they point to salad. And then the second position, when we can use the variable inside as an item inside the list like this. What happened is that for the second variable, drink points to pimps. So the second variable, they for the second box here, it creates a pointer to point pimps, so the value of drink. Okay, they don't do this. No. Okay, what they do is they create a pointer to pimps. And okay, for the third position, it's the same as before, that they point to 40. And then for the last position, again, we use the variable here. What it does is it creates a pointer to a value that the desert variable is pointing to. The desert is pointing to the green box here. So they create like a pointer here, okay? Okay, this is very important. Okay, so I think the time is up. Any question so far? Just try to understand this. I'm gonna like correct this later on. And then you're gonna understand what happened here once you understand how the items are stored inside, like logically in the program. Okay, so someone says, my friend's cats are named Hannah and Cotta. Wow. Okay, they need to be couple, living together forever. Okay, so see you next Wednesday. Okay, we're gonna go a bit fast because we don't have how much. There are gonna be holidays waiting for us. Okay, see you next week. Bye bye.